Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners work session for April 1st, 2013. And no, this is not an April Fool's joke. We are here. If you have a mobile device of any sort, if you will please put it on silent or vibrate so that it doesn't go off during the meeting. We have a big house here today, so we welcome everybody that's here. Commissioners, the first thing that we have is approval of the work session agenda with the changes. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? I have a motion. I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great. Okay, first items we have are discussion items with no action to be taken. First up, update on the QSCB projects. Lynn Whitkey is here. Nice to see you.
I'd like to take your attention to our milestone report. Got some good things to report in terms of progress being made. The first item up is the Central Cabarrus High School windows and doors. That project, as we speak, is finishing its final phase, which are the gym windows. If you recall, we were waiting until the spring break to get that done. So that's well underway as we speak, and looks like we'll finish that and then just have some minor punch list items to finish up before we're completely done with the project. The rest of the projects in that group are complete except for the gym addition at Northwest Cabarrus High School. That project is moving along on schedule. We have a late August completion date. We are in the existing gym taking down the old bleachers and the supporting floor structures right now. And obviously the new addition is going well. That's the locker rooms and bathrooms and all as well. So if you go out to the site, it looks messier than it really is. They do have a good schedule, and it's going according to plan. The Central Cabarrus High School electric vault, all we're doing is waiting for a final submission of closeout documents from the engineer and final payment requests. The electrical upgrades, we have 2 more schools to do, and then we'll be done with all 24. So we're probably, this date was a little bit hopeful on 3/8. I'd say another month out before having that one complete. The partial roof replacement, we're bidding that at the end of this month. And the thing that has changed with this project, and I'll mention it here, is that the new energy codes came into existence. So we have asked the consultant, because we have a limited amount of money currently on that project, we've asked him to break it up in increments so that we can know how much we can afford with the base price and then look at the alternate prices for the remaining portions of the roof. We were hopeful originally of getting the entire roof done. I don't think we'll be able to do that with the money that's currently in the project, but I'll get to that in a minute. We do have the kitchen hood in design for Colchin Webb Elementary School, and that's going along well. We would hope to bid that in early to mid-May with construction to start in summer. And also we are designing, and the boiler replacement at Mount Pleasant High School was a project that we had started and then sort of stopped for a bit. And it's interesting how things work out, because we've just been informed by PSNC that it looks like they will be able to get natural gas to that site this year, this calendar year. So we're now going to think a little bit more about how we want to do the boilers, and it may be that it becomes a multi-fuel type burner system, so that we can, if we have to start the heating season off with oil, we can, and then we can switch to gas in the long term. But that'll be a tremendous savings for many, many years to come. So that was good news. The weight room vocational building, that's on schedule, should bid the end of May with construction to start in the summertime. And the practice fields, I don't know if I mentioned to you last time, we did find out that the National Guard will not be able to support us on that. They said because of the cutbacks in Washington, it looks like they won't have an opportunity to do anything for another 18 to 24 months. So we're a long way from there. So I'd like to suggest, that's still a project we'd like to do, but we also feel that the roof replacement work at Jan Freeze is pretty important too. So we're going to see where those bids come in and then probably come back to you with requests depending on how all those numbers work out. And then, of course, the 3 postponed projects are still postponed at this time. Are there any questions?
Yeah, you have mentioned with the JM Freeze project, the new energy ordinances. What is that?
Oh, it's the state building code, and the energy code portion of that was updated in 2012, and it requires additional insulation, basically, in most roof designs to address the energy codes, both nationally as well as in the state.
Okay.
Was half that roof hadn't been done? I thought it was done a year ago.
A portion of it was, I wouldn't say half, but when you look at Jan Freeze, there's quite a bit of metal roof that shows.
Right.
But behind that is a lot of flat roof surface. And we did one wing and then a portion of a second wing with the initial phase of bidding on this project. And then we stopped. And we were anticipating this energy code coming into place. And so we then started up again with the new design in place.
But this won't cover the whole roof.
No, sir.
How much would it like to cover all of it?
Well, we don't know until we bid to really see where those numbers are coming at, because the membrane, which is a PVC membrane, is different than what we'd been using. We'd been using, I know it sounds technical, but I'll just say, we've been using black roofs in the past, and PVC is a white roof.
It's going to white now.
More reflective. And so we've bid a couple of projects using that material, and it's come in just about the same price, a little bit higher than what we called EDPM, or black roofing materials. We're hopeful that this project will come in the same way. So what I'm hopeful is that we'll get a major portion of the roof done, but I still think there'll be a wing or two that will need additional funds to pay for it.
Is it all the same age?
I wish I could answer that intelligently. I'd have to say a lot of it is, but I know that there's been repairs and some replacement.
Okay. One other thing, I didn't notice it on here, but the panic bars for that one school that were put on wrong.
Yes,
Whatever happened with that?
That we've been negotiating, if you will, with the manufacturer, and as all things are going, it seems these days, the manufacturer that we got the equipment from, the panic devices, is now owned by a different company. So we're dealing with the parent company, who's then dealing with their sub.
But it still hadn't been updated to the correct panic bars.
No, we are bringing in one of the newer panic bars made by the same company, and we're going to test that probably at Patriots Elementary School.
Is that not a safety issue?
It isn't, because everybody's fully aware of it, so they know how to operate the devices. And I think in general, the devices that were actually not working at all are very limited in number. A lot of them just take a little bit of care in operation. There's a couple that we've had to work on quite a bit to get functional, but the manufacturer admitted it was their mistake, and so it's just a question of what we'll accept as a replacement. And so
Well, it looks to me like it needs to be done as soon as possible.
Yes, sir. Yes, and there was a hesitancy by the manufacturer. They were trying to convince us to go back with a paddle-type device. We finally convinced them we're not going to accept that. So now they've asked us to look at this one
You
bar.
can put the panic bar, goes all across the door.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
The Northwest Fields, is that about $115,000?
That's what we have left.
Okay.
And so that was based, Commissioner, on us paying for materials and housing and things, and the National Guard was going to do all the labor. And so what that 115 plus the National Guard's labor was going to do was do all of the stormwater management, and then do rough grading and final grading of the fields and seeding. It was not going to address there's a practice track that was going to go in there. There were some other utilities, and it was not going to involve the irrigation system.
But the earmark was roughly $115,000 for that project?
For that work, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second is the Central Cabarrus. Would y'all share with us the savings, I guess the heating or the air conditioning savings by using these windows from what there was, so we can get an understanding that we're actually getting a return on the investment out there?
Yes, sir.
Because I think it was to the point where you could put your finger through the window and the wall, the frame. So I want to make certain that we realize what that return on investment is. And then and I'm not talking about a monthly basis. Look at it over time, and I don't know, whatever the fairest comparison you can make, whether it's this summer looking back or into next year. I think it's important for us to know that.
Yes, sir.
And then the last is in talking about the roof replacement. In doing the roof replacement as a piecemeal project, does that affect any warranty to the project, to what has already been put on, or what? If you put on section 1, then 2, then 3, does putting on section 3 affect the warranty to 2 and 1, or is it better to try and get it all done as close as possible time-wise? Warranty for the warranty.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and it is ideally best to do it at one time. One doesn't negate the other. In other words, if you're doing one and then you do one a little bit later, that's not a problem. It makes it a lot easier in terms of recall to address the problem in a roof if you're having a problem with it, to think about a single date rather than 3. But it is just easier to do, and it also is one of the problems with the process is we have to remove a lot of rock. So we have to sort of wait until summer to do that because it's very noisy. And that's the one benefit of the way things have turned out. But it does mean, like I said, we've engaged now this new code, and that is going to have an impact on cost.
When you say removing rock, is that the existing roof?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a ballast material that holds it down.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you feel that which I know you won't know 100% until it's bid, but do you feel like the money, that 115 at Northwest Practice Field, that's going to be enough to go along with the money that's currently in the roof project to have enough to finish it, or do you think you're going to need more than that? Because you've got, according to the spreadsheet, future cost $126,000, and then you've got $115 roughly in that. That gives you, almost $250. Do you think that would be enough to cover the whole roof, or do you think you're still going to look for additional funds over that?
No, I'm hopeful that it will. We are getting very competitive bidding, and that's a good sign. So it's the only thing I will say is that material pricing of especially oil-based products are going up. So the sooner we can bid it, the better. But I think that we're hopeful that it would be adequate.
And then when I look at the report dated March the 19th, the first section, it says there's balance remaining of almost $29,000, and the second section, balance remaining of almost $39,000. At what point in time will those funds, that's another $65,000, when will that be reallocated? About?
I would say by end of summer.
And you have to have everything done. What's your drop dead date again?
April of 2014.
Okay. So if you decide end of summer to move that, you've still got enough time.
Yes.
As far as that goes. Okay. And then I just think that you misspoke earlier. When you talked about the boiler's at Mount Pleasant High School, correct?
Yes. What did I say?
You said Concord.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Which is the next line item down, but I just,
Yes.
I knew it was Mount Pleasant.
Yes,
Didn't want
ma'am.
anybody to think that you were placing boilers at
No.
one school versus another, so.
Thank you.
And you're right, gas is a whole lot less expensive to operate than the fuel oil. so.
Absolutely.
I think those were my main questions. I mean, I think, which I think I've heard a couple times, that getting the roof replaced makes sense if you can get all of it done.
Yes.
So I'm hopeful that those funds from the ball fields, will be available, or this other amount of money to make sure that you can get all the roof replaced. So maybe one of those other projects that you've suspended too. So I don't know.
Yeah. We'll know more once we get pricing, and then we'll look at how we can
Okay.
work.
Any
try-
other questions on the QSCBs? Well, great. Thank you very much for
Thank
that
you.
part. I think you're staying around, though, for another section.
I am,
so,
yes.
Okay. Next, we have Food Policy Council. We have Patricia Kramer and Aaron Newton here to talk to us about Food Policy Council's retreat and some goals that they've set. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Trish Kramer. I'm the chairman of the Food Policy Council. As we get ready to start our fourth year, we thought we'd provide you with an update on where we stand for the year ahead of us. We held our retreat in February at the Lomax Farm. Of the 23 member seats that were established with the council, we had roughly 21 people there, and that's our membership, is we have 21 people currently on the board, on the council. We have 2 open slots. Had a great retreat facilitated by Marilyn Marks, who is the former Charlotte Food Policy Council lead. And what we came up with at the retreat was we came up with 2 overarching goals for this year for the council. The first one is to grow farmers. And part of the things we'll do with growing farmers is we will hold a series of events within the community to kind of bring different groups together to see what we can do collectively to grow the farmer base of Cabarrus County and to kind of make it more visible to the different groups. We're going to look at our locally grown campaign, which we established 2 years ago, and that's where we're promoting folks to step up and say that they are part of the locally grown campaign, and try to get some more momentum behind that. And we're committed to supporting the community in a number of different events, including the Cabarrus County Fair, the Piedmont Farmers Market Harvest Gala, and this year we're going to step out there and participate in the Cabarrus, or the Concord Parade. So that'll be a new venture for us. The council is committed to doing that. The second goal that we've set for ourselves this year is to get into the schools and promote healthy and local foods in the schools. We've been trying to do this since our inception, and we're just still getting some leverage under doing that. We are trying to connect growing the local food economy in Cabarrus County with the opportunities to meet the food needs in the schools. So we've got engaged council members that are excited about doing that on both of our goals, and we're looking forward to hopefully having more meat behind that this year. Any questions?
Any questions, commissioners?
How's the farm going? The Elma C. Lomax farm going?
Very busy now that it's warmed up today.
I mean, is there still a waiting list for growers/farmers?
We do have a waiting list. We're always looking for ways to broaden the number of people that can learn and participate at the farm. The community garden is full or nearly full with the original 25 spots that we have, and we have room for expansion there. We have one church congregation that's also growing at the farm. There are a number of beekeepers that don't actually have food that's growing at the farm, but are actually keeping bees out at the farm. And then the Cabarrus County Home Brewers Club is experimenting with organic hops production at the farm this year as well. So we've got a lot of people out there learning and trying and doing.
I had heard that one of the local churches is growing to then give that food to I don't know if it's needy, or there is a category that they were trying to address.
Central United Methodist, they are using the 5,000 square feet that we have banked for eventual community garden expansion, but we're not currently using it. They approached us and said just that they wanted to grow food for the hunger relief efforts within Cabarrus County. So they're partnering with Cooperative Christian Ministry, and everything that's being grown in that 5,000 square feet is making its way into those hunger relief efforts in our community. So that's one of the projects going on out there right now.
Now, the beekeepers, are they coming through the Cooperative Extension Program?
Bob Blackwelder of the Cabarrus County Beekeepers Association has committed to keeping one hive on site just for pollination reasons. And so really through his class, which is very popular, he's a great storyteller and a great guy, he's connected several beekeepers who needed some space to keep hives, the more pollinators the better in terms of the farm's concerned. So we've made space available out there within a fenced-in area for them to bring hives on site. And then we also have 3 farmers in training who are learning how to keep bees. And so those groups are sort of working together, the farmers are learning from the experienced beekeepers, and the experienced beekeepers have some room to keep some hives.
Now, the first misnomer is that bees are dangerous, and first of all, you don't mess with them, obviously, but keeping them out on the farm is not a danger to the people that are working on the farm.
No, not at all. We do have the area fenced off just so that there's absolutely no possibility of anybody wandering too close to them. And then they're also very obvious. But no, they're not a danger to be around.
Okay. And the local growing movement I've been getting a lot of emails from different local growers, not only for vegetables but also meat. I mean, it seems that it's picking up.
Yep.
How is everything going out at the cruise packaging?
I don't have a full update to give you on Cruise at this time, but I know that Eddie Cruz has been pleased the times that I've had a chance to talk with him this winter about the throughput through that facility in terms of the number of animals moving through there and their expectations for where they'd be at this point.
Sometime in the next couple of months, can we get an update as to, from the farmers aspect as well as from Cruise, are they doing what we anticipated, is the farmers are having a source to have an abattoir close by to take care of this, and also from Cruise? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not from them individually, but if you can get some information and feedback, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, I'll facilitate an update.
Thank you.
Say we can bring Mr. Cruz in if you want, Eddie, not Max.
Yeah,
But,
I don't want to pull them away from their job. I just want to find out, is it work? We had some ideas and we had some plans, and that's what we wanted to make certain that we are succeeding in that, so that if Mr. Newton's available to present it to us, and I'm not saying in the next 2 weeks, but sometime in the next 2 months, because the idea was we needed a place for local farmers or for farmers to actually have an abattoir to process meat. And I wanted to make certain that that is actually being accomplished.
Okay.
So I don't need Mr. Cruz here. I don't need Farmer John or Farmer Bill to come in and say yay or nay. I'd like to hear where we are.
We'll bring something back to you in May.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I want to say, when I looked at your retreat outline, I like the way that you set it up. What should the Food Policy Council do? What can the Food Policy Council do? And what will the Food Policy Council do? So I like that outline that you followed, because there are obvious limitations on getting into the school system. And but I know that if you can get into some of the schools, and if you could partner with the schools that have farms and the schools that have horticulture programs, if they could start producing products that can be used. And primarily I was thinking about Hickory Ridge High School. They have a culinary department. So, with culinary arts, they also have the greenhouses. It would be nice if they could partner together, so if it doesn't get into the cafeteria, at least they would be able to use it. And I presume they have a partnership already, but.
We are holding our May meeting, our May monthly meeting at the school there.
Oh, cool.
Yep. In the attempt of bringing all those different pieces together.
And, I mean, I know I have a number of students that have said, or people in general, mostly students, who've made comments about what's going on in the cafeteria, and they may or may not like it, but, cafeterias, there are new guidelines in the cafeteria. There are no fryers left, so, anything's baked. A lot of whole wheat going on, which is good, and a lot of vegetables, so it's not always what everybody wants what students are used to eating, if you will. But I know there's been a lot of changes in the cafeteria. So there's a new child nutrition director there. Mm-hmm. He's probably been there for about a year, so I don't know how new that is. But he's
one of our members.
He is one of your
Frank
members.
Fiorella.
So that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. And Liz, at our retreat in February, we had an interesting perspective in that we had 3 members of the youth council present and participated, most of them for the whole day. Mm-hmm. I think one of them had to leave, but we had their perspective on what they like, and just, from them and then their peers as well. So that was a good add to the meeting.
Well, I think that's great that you're using their group to come in, and, they can kind of see a bigger picture of things. So that's good. I know you're not really the farmer's market, but isn't the herb sale coming up soon? Do you know which weekend
The Spring Plant and Herbs Festival is April 13th at the Weinkauf School Road Market location.
Very busy day.
8 to 2, I think.
8 to 5.
8 to 5.
And I think they had about 8,000 people through there last year, so very busy.
Okay, so the 13th, so 2 weeks away. Everybody needs to plan on going to that. I know it's good out there. And I also wanted, on your comment about Cruise, if you go out there, which I've gone out there, and I like to go out there and buy meats from them. I do know that there is a producer out that's at the farmer's market, and he has started having his bratwurst produced using Cruise, and I know he's going there. So that was a good thing. I know that he's mentioned that he's happy that he has the facility local, and once they, that day that we all were out there when we cut the ribbon and, everything, the big celebration, there wasn't anything really in there to see. But if you go out there, I'm sure they'll give you a tour. I was out there one Saturday and took a few extra minutes to go through, and it was nice and cold, and there were a number of cows hanging there, and that's about the extent of my knowledge of food processing. But if you go out there, I'm sure that any of the commissioners, that if you want to get a tour in operation, I guess I should say, that they'll be happy to do that. So.
Liz, the same producer you referred to that's out at the market, he recently added dairy products to his offering at the market. So he's offering milk and butter and other products on a somewhat limited basis until he gets a feel for what the demand is. But that's been a great add to the market.
It is
It is.
homogenized. And I have to tell you, the chocolate milk is to die for.
Yes, and all the products are great.
I now have orders to go, not just for eggs on Saturdays, but to bring home chocolate milk. So I forgot who the producer is, though.
Chad
Yeah,
Moncan,
but
who's also a member.
he doesn't produce
Creeks-
the milk. I don't remember who's doing it.
It's Homeland Dairies out of, I think, Julian, North Carolina.
I highly recommend it, by the way. If anybody likes chocolate milk, that's some good stuff, so. Okay. No other comments? Thank you both very much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you being here.
Talk to you.
Okay, the next section we have are discussion items for action at our regular meeting. And first up, we have Londa Strong, who's going to talk about joint use facilities and a memorandum of understanding with Cabarrus County Board of Education.
We have been working on a new joint use agreement with the Cabarrus County Schools for almost all of my 30 years here. Actually, the existing agreement is from 1973. And so seriously, off and on over the last 20 years, we've been trying to come up with a new school use agreement, giving school first priority use and active living and park activities second use, and then anyone else third priority use on the facilities. This is the first step in that, and it is a memorandum of understanding regarding the joint use. The school board has already approved this. We worked seriously over the last year pretty hard trying to come up with something that was good for the schools as well as us. There are still some issues as exactly how things will be operated, but the next step with the joint use agreement will address all of those. And I've been working with several of the athletic directors and Donna Smith over the last few months in trying to get a head start on those. But this is just the memorandum of understanding, talking about the overall concept and what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. The other will be the specifics. This was approved by the Board of Education at their February meeting. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to attempt to answer them. If not, I know we have a couple people back here from the school that may be able to help me.
Any questions?
This is just for the gyms?
No, it's for everything.
Gyms, football fields, everything.
Yes.
And when I was looking through it, it's for all ages?
Correct.
Okay. What is I did not see in here, what is the policy that if things are locked if the baseball fields are locked up, if the football fields are chained shut, how do we deal with that?
That will be in the joint use agreement on the specifics. It wouldn't be in this part. It would be in the part that we're working on next.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is part number 2, isn't it? We've already approved. Do we not have another one? This is the first one that
No,
we
this is number 1.
Okay, I was thinking, or we've just talked about it a couple times.
Yes, we have.
Okay. Any other questions concerning the memorandum of understanding? Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And now we'll ask Lynn Whitkey to come back up, and you to stay.
Yes.
The next item has to do with the Mount Pleasant Middle School Park and an issue of restrooms.
I would assume that most of you all have received a phone call or have talked with someone in reference to this bathroom situation. If not, just a brief summary. The specific area we are talking about is the Mount Pleasant Middle School Park opposite north drive of the gymnasium where the tennis courts were there even when it was high school, so that's the section. Over the last 20 years, soccer and softball, baseball fields have been put on that area by the Youth Association, mostly through incentive grant program that through our department. The bathroom in the gymnasium is what has been used up until the last several years when the association, and these are volunteer athletic associations who are elected by the members of the association, the parents, basically. And they work for those parents, but sometimes that gets a little severed along the way, especially if someone's been in that position the officers have been in their position for a while. Things change a little bit. Right now, they're using a porta-john. There is no water to that specific site. There is a concession trailer, limited food service, so you don't have to have water for that. They're not violating any health regulations, and so we are making sure that the Health Alliance comes out and inspects at least before each season starts. There have been quite a few phone calls this year in reference to a bathroom. I think maybe even before Lynn got in this job, when the talk was of making the new middle school on that property, just flip-flopping several years ago, we have not put money in nor done any large requests to school maintenance or Mr. Whitkey to do anything other than safety issues on that piece of property. We didn't think that it was prudent to do upgrades and replacements of something, maybe because it was a little old, when in fact it was going to be torn down in a few years. So nothing has been done to make it look nicer in the last several years. We did do dugouts this year, but it was a safety fact. They needed to be replaced. So if we were going to play there, we had to do that. So that has been done, but that's the biggest project that we've done, and I'm not sure if you all have done anything in addition to that. That was just for regular maintenance.
Yeah, I think it's routine maintenance at this point, just to keep things functional and generally operational, but nothing new or out of the ordinary.
So, a lot of requests for bathroom and water. Working with Mr. Whitkey, we've found a few portable bathrooms. They're nice portable bathrooms. It's not a porta-john. It's like some of the golf tournaments you see, the type that come in. That is ADA accessible. We found several different ones. I first thought, well, renting would be the best thing until I found out it was $2,400 a week and $100 a week to service it. So that very quickly adds up. And we're looking at $3,000, $2,800 a month just to rent it. So I believe it might have been Mr. Downs who said, well, how much would one cost? And Mr. Whitkey found one in Gastonia or Gaston County. The name of the company escapes me at the moment, but doesn't matter.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think that was portable restrooms.
Yeah, for like $31,000 to purchase. Now, that is a used one, but they're nice. They're not, it's not like it's not like a construction site trailer that's been put up. They range in price from, depending on the size that you want. I did find one that was a single ADA male, single ADA female that was a little bit cheaper than that, but the one that Mr. Whitkey found was much nicer than the ones that I found that were anywhere close to this area. Because obviously if $31,000 is coming from Florida, it's going to cost us that much in shipment to get it here, so we're not looking at that.
Yeah, these units have plumbing in them, so there's sinks, hand wash sinks. It is hooked up to the public water and sewer if we choose to put it down there. The one good thing about this too, while they are expensive, if 2 years from now or 3 years from now or whatever, that the decision is made to actually put that school on that site, we can move this to Frank List Park. We can move this, because I believe they will accommodate a holding tank as well. We can
Yes,
probably buy the
that is
holding-
correct.
so that you can do a pump and haul, and we could put it out at the soccer complex. We could move it to a road race. We could do it pretty much anywhere we wanted to go. You could pull it around. So, my understanding, Mr. Whitkey, was that the schools had approximately $10,000 that they could put towards the project.
Yes, sir.
And so,
Yep.
to make up the difference, Londa has talked to the athletic associations out there, and they have very little, if any, money to put towards it. So, I know Mr. Meesmer's been getting quite a few calls and has addressed that with us. So we wanted to bring it before you guys to give you the option. We can, if you guys so choose, we can purchase one, we can lease one. Again, I think the purchase is probably the best option. Just to let you know, if you do go that route, you do have some funds available to you in your board contingency. You've got approximately $356,000 in that board contingency right now, so that you've not used this year, if you so choose to use it. So,
Mr. Whitkey, the $10,000, is that, would that go towards the purchase price, and then the schools would also make the connections in addition to, or does that 10,000 cover the connections?
It was really focused on utility connections. There's if everyone decides that we needed to hook it up directly to a sewer to start with, we did pay already for the connection, actual line connection with the town, and that's already in place. But in order to, that's a forced main, so it's under pressure. In order to take gravity-fed sewage, you'd have to have a pumping station, and that's really what that $10,000 was addressing, was a pumping station. We'd have to also run, water and electrical is available on site, or I should say, at the site. We'd have to run that to the trailer, and that, so there's another cost there.
Okay, so pretty much the way it stands, I just wanted to make sure on the dollars. The school system would do the connections, and the county would be responsible for the $31,000 cost plus whatever the delivery charges would be. Is that what we're looking at, or do you have money to go towards the $31,000 cost in delivery?
I'm saying we have $10,000 to go towards the utilities, and I'd estimate the utilities at $18,000 to $20,000 total. Now, as I said, the decision is, the biggest piece of that is the sewer cost. And we can just use the holding tanks on these, but they're, on the larger ones, they're, I think, 300 gallons per side. And depending on how heavy a use it might get, that could be used up in a weekend, it might not. It could go for a week or two. Depends on what's going on, of course, and the amount of activity and people that are there. But that is one option, is you don't have to immediately hook it up to a sewer. And so there could be savings there. I'm just saying if the county would rather not, we can put in the pump station or lift station, as it's called, and make the secure connection.
Okay, so do you have the means, if it's a holding tank, do you have a mean, does the school system have a means to take care of that every weekend or however long it takes for it to get full?
No.
I mean, so that would be an additional cost that someone would have to bear.
Yes, ma'am.
If it's not hooked up. And then what you're saying is that the connection is $18,000 to $20,000, of which you have half of that.
Yes,
So you
ma'am.
would be looking to us for the other half.
Correct.
Do you have any idea what the transportation cost was going to be to get it here?
I don't. It depends on, the people that, the organization that you purchase from.
I'm looking at, she said there was one in Gaston County, if that one was still available at this amount. Any idea how?
I'd have to check.
I didn't see a price on there per mile or anything.
Right, right.
Because now the request is approximately $31,000 for the facility, plus $10,000 towards connecting it from us, plus transportation. So we're looking at more like $45,000 to $50,000 is what it was going to cost the county.
I can tell you that, just looking at the numbers, I have one cost from one of these organizations of $1,572 for delivery. Another one and this was two, so the single cost was under $1,000. So it depends on the firm that you're dealing with, the size of the unit, that sort of thing.
So somewhere around $45,000 is what we're looking at.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's what I was concerned or questioning, was the total cost that we'd be looking at from the county. Chris?
No, I will just say, I have received a lot of phone calls about this issue. I'm not sure if anyone else has received phone calls about it, but apparently, there'll be 70 to 80 people out there with no restrooms, and they're having to go to the woods to conduct their business. So I know the $45,000 a hefty price tag, but whenever you're having children and adults having to use the woods, I think something has to be done. I don't know, what another alternative would be to renting, portable restrooms, but something has to be done. So, I would support this.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to add, Londa, why don't you give some historical perspective on this? How did we get to where we are, and why that actually took place, and how do other associations, athletic associations, take care of items like this?
Mount Pleasant has had different leadership over the last 20 years. Some that are very involved and want to raise money and make things better, just like any of the other associations. And then there's some that aren't as involved. And one of the things that we have encouraged every year to all of the associations during our incentive grant application process time is apply for funds and get stuff done, because you're getting half price and sometimes even less than that, because they may have someone who will do labor or whatever for them. Mount Pleasant has not been very involved over the last 5 years as far as raising funds. And actually, when I asked baseball, they said that they could come up with maybe $500 or $1,000. And softball, soccer said they had actually no money because they operate on a zero basis each year. They name their teams after charitable organizations, and at the end of the season, whatever money they've raised, they give to those charitable organizations, so they don't have any money. Those are the two that use it, but football does not play there. So they have not been proactive, I guess, in trying to get things done. And as I've told some of the people that have called, they said, well, how did Harrisburg get their concession stand? They worked for it. They applied for grants through us as well as other groups and raised money to get the concession stand, the bathroom, whatever it was, built. And each of the associations have done that over the years. And as I said, Mount Pleasant had years in the past, but the last 5 they haven't been as involved in getting it done to try to make improvements on the facility. So that has put them a little bit farther behind than some of the other associations. Add to the top of that we haven't done a lot of new things simply because of the plans for making that a new school. And then where you are now, Commissioner Poole, I believe, Friday, you said you had talked with someone who said that the backstops were rusty. Yeah, they are. Yeah, yes, that's a true statement, but we could probably do some things with that. I've had several people to talk about the dugouts have mud, but the other places have concrete in them. And, we need things like that. And those are all things that the association, if they had been so inclined over the last several years, those are minimal. That could have easily gone through our incentive grant program, but they haven't been involved in doing that. By no means am I saying they don't need a bathroom. I'm just saying they haven't been as committed as some of the organizations in the past. So that kind of gets us to where we are. Still doesn't alleviate the problem. There needs to be a bathroom. And we did get the school the key for the gymnasium, and they have been supposedly opening the gym up so they can cross the street and use that restroom. And there is a portage on there that gets cleaned once a month. That gets changed once a week. Once a week. So that is on site. And the gymnasium, Commissioner Meismer sent me an email Friday saying that it had only been opened one day that week. And the only answer I can get is that it was open the other days.
I know that, like I said, a number of years ago, their youth association was very active out there. It was one of the bigger ones, I thought, in the county. I know I had to go out for soccer a lot on the field out there, and I've been out there to numerous baseball games, Little League softball games, and everything else, coach pitch and t-ball, and there are a lot of people out there. That's true. It'd be nice if the gym was open when it needed to be open so that there wasn't a problem, and it would be nice if that road could be blocked off so that traffic wasn't an issue for younger kids to, take off run that way instead of running to the trees. It'd be nicer if they were running to the gym. Yeah.
checked with DOT 10 years ago, I guess, about that situation on North Drive, and DOT indicated at the time, now, I'm sure that was 10 years ago, that the school is the one that would have to apply to abandon that road. So that they would have to, because it was intersected their property, and they would be the one that would have to apply for it. We could not.
Well, I would encourage Cabarrus County Schools to look to at least investigate that situation, to see if that's something that, I mean, if that would be beneficial. If you build it, if the school gets rebuilt there, then I think that's a no-brainer, but
Exactly.
at this point, I don't know. Commissioners, what are your thoughts on?
The season starts in a few weeks, practice is going on now, and they'll run through, depending on tournament time, middle to end of June.
How many years have they been having this problem with the bathroom? How many years have they been having the problem with the bathroom that we have known of?
This is actually the first year I've received phone calls because they've had the porta-john there, and could have had the gymnasium if they wanted it, but they did not until this year we helped them and realized they wanted it.
And how many years have they been known about the incentive program?
As long as they've been in existence.
5+ years?
Oh, yes.
In regards to the facility, the I'll call it a porta-john, it's not, but what's the life expectancy of that unit?
That's hard to say. I think,
Well, can you get that information?
Oh, sure.
I'd want to know what the life expectancy of it is, and I don't know if when they give you the life expectancy, do they give you life expectancy for bringing and sitting at one place, or is there a life expectancy if you're rotating it around, you know? So I'd like to, because my idea is, my thinking is, if we do get it, how transportable is it? And when it's the more transportable, not that we're going to be transporting it every week, but what's the life of this? And does the life expectancy increase if it's hooked up to sewer as opposed to the tank? I don't know if there's an issue there. And Mr. Wicke, you mentioned something about a forced main. Does that matter? Does that affect the life
yeah,
basically the life expectancy of it? Is it better to be, I know it's better to be at one place, I would think, but if it's not at one place, how easy can we move it? Do we have I would imagine Mr. Billafer's got some sort of contraption out there that can move it. The question is, I don't want to put more work on Mr. Billafer. He's got enough on his plate. So is it something that can be hooked up by most people and transported?
Well, to piggyback off of that, if he can move it here, if it's within a couple counties, can he go pick it up
Well,
to save $1,000 or $1,500 or whatever transportation? And then the other question I had to piggyback also on that, who's going to clean it and who's going to provide paper products to make sure that, because it's just like anything else. If it's mine, I'm going to take care of it. If it's somebody else, I might not. So you're looking at cleats, because they're going to have the cleats on all the time, and running in. Need to make sure that whatever the floor is, that I'm not going to come running in with cleats and somebody's left the water running and I'm going to go, slip and fall, and then I'm going to want to come after somebody because it wasn't monitored, it wasn't kept clean. What happens when there's no toilet paper or, or hand towels in there and all of those things. So, Commissioner Burridge?
How old is this unit you're going to buy?
there were several that I looked at. One was, literally, it was used once, it was at a wedding, and it was 2013.
Are they on wheels? Does it come on wheels?
Yes, they come on wheels.
Comes
You
on
can-
wheels, so you just pull it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how about heat and air? They got heat and air in it?
They do.
They do?
At least, yes. I shouldn't say they all do, but the ones that I was looking at did.
County ought to be able to take one of their big trucks over and hook to it.
If this was approved, how long would it take to, it wouldn't be you said, the end of June, there'll be.
Season
Finish.
starts up the week of April the 8th. It just depends on what day they start on.
Right. So if this
and
was
it'll
a-
run through in middle to the end of June, the season will be
Okay.
over.
How long would it take to get a unit here, get it set up and fully operational? Any idea?
In the case of, I'd say the sewer is another issue. I would hold that out. If we have the holding tanks on the units, that's not a problem, at least initially. And then it would just simply take, we'd have to tap in and get water to the unit, because they don't come with a water source. And electrical power. The power, I believe, is up to, if you're familiar with the location where the concession stand is now, which is more or less in the field, in the middle of the fields, we were going to locate this nearby so that there'd be a short run of electrical from that location to the new unit. And then water would be coming sort of midway through the fields. We'd be making a tap into the water line on the adjacent street. And so that's...
So what would be the timeline on accomplishing?
The water line, I mean, if it's, I'm not sure what it means in terms of tapping in. We don't, there's not a tap there now, so we do have to cut the street and all. The town will probably more than likely do that, so it's probably a few weeks, I would say. We're probably looking at 2 to 3 weeks to get that done.
Do we have an ongoing expense now with the Porta-John and servicing it, and
We do not. The association pays
the
for that.
association's paying for that?
Yes.
Do you sense that some of the reluctance from the association to be involved in the grant program and do things may be the same issues that we have, as that it may be relocated or removed in the near future? Has that slowed them down, you think?
Possibly. I'm not
What
sure.
would you have any ballpark idea what the association is spending on the Porta-John and servicing it now?
It's $80
A week?
month.
A month? That's more
That's
reasonable than I would have
once a
thought.
week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we ought to get 4 or 5 more.
Nah, you don't have to worry, John.
Well, actually, I was going to ask that, too. So let's think about what information do we need before we meet again in 2 weeks in order to be able to address this. We need to know how long it's going to take to hook it up. We need to know I'd like to have a better cost on what the connections are so that we have a better idea of how much we'd be looking to fund. We'd need to know what transportation would be for them to whichever one you find to deliver versus if Kyle is able to go pick it up. You want to know the cost of additional Porta-Johns to compare?
Wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
And you mentioned the maintenance, routine cleaning.
Who's going to take care of the
paper products.
maintenance?
I can answer that now.
Okay.
The youth associations do, because that's exactly what they do at all of the other facilities. They're responsible for the paper products and for cleaning it.
How about damage?
Is it insured? Who would insure it? Is it us or is it school system?
Doesn't the county own that piece of property? I know that's one of those questionable ones.
Actually, I think that was used for QSCB. I don't recall, but I believe it was.
Mount Pleasant Middle School was used for collateral for QSCB.
Would you also like the president of the association, whether it be baseball and soccer, to come in and tell us how they make sure that they're capable of paying for these recurring costs every month?
That would be good. What else can you think of?
Well, if you're gonna use a holding tank, you're gonna have to have somebody pump it out every time it needs it. That's gonna be a good, $150?
We would need to know that.
I believe they said it was 100 a month.
100 a month
Can you
Yes,
just
sir.
verify?
to pump it how many times?
I assume whenever it's needed, they'd pump it, but
Well, you're gonna get them by pumping it.
Yeah,
I'll
we need to
check
have
with-
that verified too, if we're going to use holding tanks. Because if it's going to take, 3 or 4 weeks before it's there, we're going to be, end of
May
April,
15th.
first part of May, they're done the end of June.
Then soccer starts
Okay.
in August.
The other question I had is where it's located, and I just don't know this answer. The middle school, does the middle school use those fields for PE classes, or?
Yes,
So would it be available to them?
that would be the ideal thing.
I mean, that's just a question. Would it be available to them? If that's the case, then if I was a youth association, I would say that the school system should help police it too, because I don't want to be responsible if something happened on a weekday. You know what I mean? If it happened with a PE class in there versus the youth association. And I don't know, maybe they're probably there a couple afternoons a week anyway with practices and everything else. So I just think that's another part of it. I'd like to know if it's going to be available to the school during the day, and if so, any implications with that. I mean, I made a joke with Commissioner White that it was a Title IX issue because the girls don't really want to be going over to the trees. That would be a good reason to fund something. We don't want to have issues like that, but anyway, I think we're looking at $45,000, and we do have money sorry for the back feed. We do have money in the commissioner's contingency that could cover it if that's the pleasure of the board. So if we can get any of that we could get, I guess, prior to the meeting so that we can look at it would be great, and then have them their representatives at the meeting, that would be great too. So, anything else on that? Okay, thank you both.
Thank you.
The next item that we have is, sorry I missed this last month, a resolution relating to Second Amendment rights. Rich, do you want to talk about it, or, I mean, you guys talked about it a lot at the last meeting, so I don't know how much you need, how much we need legal advice as far as this updated version of, I guess. Commissioners, any comments, questions about it? Commissioner Burridge, do you have any comments?
Well, I would like to see us put it off until after our public meeting and see what the public has to say. There's a few things in this that don't go far enough, I don't think. Also, did you talk to the sheriff about putting this together, or?
I reached out to the sheriff about it, but I have not talked with him specifically about it.
Okay. I'd like to see us put it off until after we have our public meeting.
So, do you want it on the agenda, though, for us to discuss in 2 weeks, or do you want to move it to?
I'd rather move it up to our next work session.
That's what I mean.
Let the public speak this coming public meeting, and then make a decision on our next work session.
Okay, well, we typically wouldn't make a decision at the work session.
Well,
I
but
mean,
then
we
bring it
can.
up for the May meeting.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to clarify and
Yeah,
make
okay.
sure where you were with that, okay? That you didn't want to have it on as an item, because, I mean, we had a lot of conversation at our last meeting.
Right, but I don't think, there's still some other people want to speak on that, I think.
And that's perfectly fine. That would happen either way, whether it was on the agenda or not, I'm sure, as was the case last month. Steve, Jay, Chris, anything that you want changed, anything that you want to talk about, or we just want to put it on May?
I appreciate Mr. Cook handling it the way he did. The comments that we got at the last meeting was the public wanted us to support the Second Amendment, and this is exactly what the resolution has. So I will either second or I will make a motion pursuant to Mr. Burge's request that we table this until our May meeting. And I don't think we need to have it at our work session to discuss again unless.
Not really.
I mean, I just put it on for the May meeting.
It's okay with me.
I think that would be May the 20th is my guess.
You're okay? Okay. We will put it on the May meeting. Next item that we have is Cardinal Innovation sublease termination and settlement agreement. Jonathan, you gonna handle that?
I am. This is a termination of a lease we have with Cardinal Innovations, otherwise known PBH, Piedmont Behavioral Health, for a building on Lake Concord Road, 457. Mr. Cook wrote the termination agreement. Their counsel has commented on it. Excuse me. So this does represent the amended version of that, which they're in agreement with. It will require a budget amendment because we are paying them to terminate that agreement because they had some use, an additional 12 to 13 years that they could have used this building. So there is a cost to that for the county associated with that. We are, however, also pursuing sale of that building, which will and should be more than the cost we're incurring for this lease termination.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions concerning the sublease termination and moving forward with this particular piece of property? Hopefully to sell it. That will be a separate item, though, once we get to that part. All right, everybody good with it? Okay. Next we have David. Is David here? Midland? Okay.
David Pugh is out of town, but he had indicated that someone from their council would be here. Otherwise, I'll be glad to address this item.
No, I don't see anybody from Midland, so.
Until there, I'd rather have someone here from Midland to present it, because I may have some questions for Midland.
Okay.
If it's this concerning to them, then I think they need to be here, is my personal belief. I'm one of 5.
Do you want to, let's go ahead and talk about it, make sure everybody knows what it has to deal with. I talked to David and about it. You can see referenced by the letter that they sent. But if you want to address it, just so that we make sure everybody knows what we're talking about.
Well, as you're aware, they're pursuing some additions to the sanitary sewer network in that area. That would include a request to the Clean Water Management Trust Fund, and that this is a request to the county to support that application. And it's to go along with other grants that they've already applied for to help with that project.
One thing, we do not currently have we have an ongoing project right now that we've received funds for this, but we have not applied, and nor do we plan to apply for any grants in this, so we would not be competing with the town.
The federal grant?
The money is administered through the state, but I'm not sure of the original source of that money, but I can check on that for you.
It is the North Carolina Clean Water Management Trust Fund, and that was what David said to me about it, that if the county was applying for any funds, then they would not have asked for our support. Because the county was not, they felt that it would be beneficial for them to have the county come out in support of their application. So can we leave this on the agenda and move it to the action agenda so that they can be with us in 2 weeks? I don't know what their time frame is on moving forward with it. I don't know what their deadlines are. So we can reach out to them and have someone from Midland here, David or somebody else, Mayor Kitts or somebody, come to present the information at the meeting and try to get some more information.
That's fine with me.
Is that okay with everybody? The only concern I have is that they may have a deadline that they were looking for, and I don't know that for a fact. So, okay, we'll try to make sure somebody's here. Okay, the next item we have Steve Langer is here for adoption of ordinance amending Chapter 34. Fire Prevention and Protection of the Cabarrus County Code of Ordinances.
Good afternoon. That's a mouthful there. What we are proposing and recommending is a change to the ordinance that is related to the fire tax and insurance district boundaries of the Reimer, Coldwater, and Concord Rural Fire Districts. These changes are limited to moving 1 parcel from Reimer to the Coldwater Fire District and moving 9 parcels from Coldwater to the Concord Rural. The 9 parcels that are in Coldwater are actually located off of Copperfield Boulevard, and they're more than 5 miles from the Coldwater Fire Station. So these properties can get no better than a 9 on their insurance rating. Also, Coldwater is not established through OSFM as a 6-mile district. They are a 5-mile district. So on the next go-around of inspections, if the state finds it, they would actually fail them on their inspections. So our recommendation is to move those parcels. We received a notice last month from OSFM, and Concord has actually lowered their insurance rating now to a 2. So these properties would actually reap that benefit for any structures that are located and any future development of the properties that are not developed. So our recommendation is to, and request is to have a public hearing scheduled at the June meeting to consider adopting these changes to the Cabarrus Code of Ordinance, Chapter 34, Article 1, and if approved, include new sections to depict the boundaries as indicated on the maps provided.
Any questions?
What notice will be given to the homeowners as to the fact that they're moving from one district to another?
Well, we're required by the bill to do a public notice in the paper, but we can also send out a notice in mail to the property owners.
If it's only 15 people, less than 15 people, I would ask that you send it out, and I'd also ask that the letter that goes to them say what their tax rate is now and what their tax rate will be, because I don't think they have the same tax rate in the district, in the different districts. So
That's correct.
I think it's important for the homeowners to know that.
Okay. The ones that are off Copperfield, we do need to do that. Mr. Casper, the other owner, he requested this,
Okay.
so he is aware, right?
And then finally, in the letter, I would ask that they may want to contact their insurance company, because by changing from one district to another, their ISO rating might change, and they can realize those savings, if that's possible. So I don't want them to be taxed under a new district, have a lower ISO rating, but insured under a higher ISO rating, and them just not know it.
Yep, definitely.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
And we would be, go ahead, sorry.
Are you proposing June or May?
June, because the bill
Gotta have a
requires.
60-day requirement.
Yeah, you got to have that, and there's not enough time between the work session and the actual meeting, so yes.
Okay, so we're scheduling the public hearing at the June meeting?
Yes,
Is what
ma'am.
you're asking? Okay, I just want to make sure, because I was getting ready to say about having a public hearing. So, so they have time to, well, not a whole lot of time, because you have to give notice, but to contact and,
Can they waive that notice? Can they waive the 60 days notice and we do it in May?
No, it's a part of the bill. The bill
Okay.
requires that
Okay.
we give them that notice.
Sorry, I just,
now I forgot what I was going to ask. Do you know if any of these parcels are rented?
I do not.
Okay, that's another thing. You do want to make sure that if they're rented, that the actual owner gets it and the person renting gets it, if there's any change for them.
landlord and tenant.
Yeah, you just want to make sure that the right notice is given. I know that there was an incident, not with us, but with the municipality, and they sent it to the physical location, which the renter got, but the owner didn't get. And so the renter moved out, but the owner didn't get the notice, so it's delaying a project, is my understanding. So you want to make sure that it goes to through the tax department who the owner is, versus sending something just to that
To the
street
address.
address, just to that mailing address.
And we would use the tax abstract, so the owner would be the one receiving the notice. The tenant is probably the more difficult for us to notice, actually.
Well, I just want to make sure, this one shouldn't affect the tenant,
Yeah.
Per se, because, well, I don't know, unless they would have a personal property insurance.
Hell, yeah,
So-
but the rating doesn't apply to that.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, that wouldn't make a difference, but you do want to, I just knew that happened. I want to make sure that the correct person gets notified, so. Okay. Well, we will move forward then to put this on for a public hearing at our June meeting. Okay. Thank you. And let's see, you have the next one too. Allocation of one-time funding for mobile computer terminal system for volunteer fire departments.
Yes, this request is requesting an allocation of one-time funding for purchase and install of mobile computer terminal software and system components in the primary engine and tanker of each of our fire stations. This will place our departments on the same system that the Sheriff's Office and EMS currently use. By doing this, it will help us achieve some of the data that's needed, that was recommended from the fire study that the board approved last year. The departments would still be responsible for purchasing the computers, the yearly maintenance cost, and the internet data service for all this to work. So we would only be asking for the upfront cost of the software and the AVL component portion.
Yeah, this project's on this was one of your items on your one-time funding list, and you discussed it briefly at the retreat, but you had several questions. It's advantageous to the emergency management fire marshal's office, but also to the fire departments. But I wanted to make sure Mr. Langford was here to answer any questions that you had on this particular application of these computers and why it was important to them.
Commissioners, questions?
So I'm assuming all the volunteer fire departments have that funding in place and are prepared to provide the equipment and the ongoing charges for internet and so forth?
We have met with the departments and brought this up, and every department, there was only one department really had a concern with the ongoing cost, but everybody else seemed to be on board with moving forward with it.
Great. Thank you.
What type of information or data you said would be, I guess, more accessible? What type of information?
Well, some of the safety components of the system for just the fire departments, it puts the information right at their fingertips, such as the call data, notes that's entered in by the communicators for the call. When they're dispatched to an address, they will actually be able to pull up all of the past call history for that address to be able to see kind of what calls they went to or law enforcement has went to at that address. For dispatch to commercial structures, it will actually, CAD system integrates with our firehouse program, where we enter in all of our commercial occupancy data, such as contact information, the occupancy classification, whether it's a hazardous facility. The fire departments go out and do pre-plans, which is a risk assessment of hazardous facilities in their district. That information can be loaded in here as well, and they have that information at their fingertips. The mapping system of the MCT allows the departments to be able to view hydrant locations. So when they're responding to a structure fire, they can look at and see where the closest hydrant is and determine whether or not the primary engine or the next due engine will grab the hydrant. There's an emergency feature built into the system where the department can hit a letter on the board 3 times, and it actually sends an emergency signal to our communication center. They would then be able to try to make contact with that unit because they'll know exactly what unit it is. If they're not able to get them because of the AVL that's installed, they will actually be able to see the location of that unit. For us, it will allow us to be able to get more accurate data on their response time, and turnout to calls.
How many, because not every volunteer fire department, is it? How many fire departments?
In this, it takes out Harrisburg and Mount Pleasant because they had actually already moved forward with doing this probably 2 years ago. So they actually already have it. So it would be all of our remaining volunteer departments, and I believe our 2 out-of-county departments at the moment.
Okay, I would want I would want to require that they have the computer and that they can show that they've got some type of a contract or something that they're going to need in order to be able to operate it prior to doing an install. As I would hate for us to install something and then you say there's one department that's concerned about the ongoing cost. I wouldn't want to spend our money installing and then it's just this piece there with no computer and no way to pay for the expenses. Then we've wasted money by putting it in that apparatus. So whatever the cost, I mean, am I reading this right? They're going to have to get a laptop?
They're going to have to purchase a computer.
Okay.
They're going to have to purchase or pay the maintenance agreement each year. and then pay for internet data service.
So I would like some type, I mean, I don't need to see it, but I think you need to see it, and you need to see it. Make sure that they have, in fact, a laptop that is usable, not one that's 5 years old that's no longer being serviced, that somebody says, I got an extra one at home, we'll just put this one in there.
We'll provide specs from the software provider, so that make sure they meet those specs before we.
But I mean, I want you to verify that they're doing their part before we do an install. So, any other?
What sort of responsibility is that going to place on the IT department?
We currently do it for Mount Pleasant and Harrisburg. Part of that annual fee is a fee back to the county to recover some of that cost, because we do have a system administrator that has to update the software annually and to maintain that and user accounts. And if they get locked out, and there is some overhead for the county on this, but part of that maintenance.
True overhead.
Yeah, it does. Because we've done it for 2 years, I feel like we've got a pretty good handle on it at this point.
Well, now you're going to get how many more? Roughly?
Roughly 22 more.
20 plus?
22.
Yeah, it's because there isn't a lot. It's very similar to as Langer said, is that it's similar to what the patrol and EMS already have in place. It's fairly low maintenance. I don't want to discount it and say we're overcharging, but it is a.
What's an added service that your staff is going to have to be dealing with?
Correct, and we charge about $500 a year for our support.
In regards to the specs, would it be financially prudent to pull the 20-plus purchases and the county buys them all at one time, as opposed to piecemealing it?
Well, that is something that we have actually, through meeting with the fire chiefs and trying to move forward with joint purchasing, this item was actually brought up at our meeting last Monday as far as the computers, and I actually brought up to them, working with our IT department on computer replacements that they may be purchasing to try to get a better cost.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Susan Farrington's next, County Memorial Library Capital Projects Fund Transfer and Related Budget Amendment. Welcome.
Before you have a request for the to move the funds from the general fund to a multi-year project fund. It's for the expansion at the Mount Pleasant Library. About in 2009, November, we had a private donation of $15,000, $15,725, and this design has been prepared and paid for, and we have a balance right now of $9,740. And to alleviate us from reappropriating this money each year, we would like to move it to a multi-year project, so the money will sit there until the time for the project to begin. So money will be there available. So this is a budget amendment to approve this and a project ordinance to.
Yeah, this money is funded. It was funded. It was grant funds, and it can only be used for this purpose. So what we're trying to do is, instead of having to come back every year and reappropriate and move to the next budget, it just puts it out there in that account, and as we receive more grants or other revenues coming in, we can just feed them right directly into that account versus.
So this is a grant, this is not a donation from a private citizen?
It was a donation from a private citizen.
Yeah, it was, I'm sorry.
Does that private citizen know that we're asking, that y'all are asking, or it's being asked to be transferred into this fund? I want to make certain that if I give money, and the person that I give it to says, well, we want to move it here, it would be nice for me to be notified. That's what I want to make certain, is that if it's moved, whenever it's going to be moved, that person needs to know we're asking for it to be moved, this is why, and it's going to be used for the purposes you wanted it. That's my point.
We can notify the donor to get the information.
And because if they say no, absolutely not, then I want to know that.
For using the multi-year fund, it'll actually be easier for accounting tracking purposes to make sure it stays intact and is used for that proposal. So I think it's a good idea, but we will definitely contact them.
I don't think that, I just don't want them to read it in the paper, say, wait a second.
Absolutely.
I did it for this, why is it getting moved? I'd rather them be told ahead of time, this is that's being asked of us.
Okay.
And from what I understand, it's not technically it's making sure it stays for that purpose that it was originally given for. It's just giving some accounting flexibility to be able to track the funds So we're not moving it. I don't want you, because you said if it's being moved.
Well-
It's not being moved, it's still in there with the Mount Pleasant Library. And it's not going anywhere else, which is where it was donated to begin with, to be with the Mount Pleasant Library.
Yeah.
So we're not moving it to another library, we're not
No,
moving it to any
right.
other, anything. It's staying there for its original purpose. Just want to clarify that. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have Ann Wilson. Oh, there you are, you switched seats. We've talked a couple times about the general obligation bond refunding.
Yes, refunding. So we're getting closer and closer. And what this is designed to discuss is, do you want to put some additional cash down when you do the refunding? And so what I've done is I've had our underwriter to take a look at the various savings we might achieve if we put some additional cash down when we do the deal in April, assuming rates stay where the deal is a good thing to do, and I'm making that assumption. And so what I've got for you there is a various scenarios based on putting increments of $1 million down. So, you know, if we don't put anything down, our gross savings at the current rate's about $5.2 million. If we put $1 million down, then that savings goes up another $164,000. If we put $2 million down, it increases to $328. So you see $3,491,000 additional, $4,658,000, and $5,827,000. So I wanted to give the board the opportunity to discuss what you think you might want to do. Now, what we're looking at in this is, okay, if it was sitting in our bank account earning funds on either commercial paper or whatever that we currently have it in, and then the question would be, too, would we spend it on something else? And so how long would the money be there? So what you see there is an approximate break-even rate, so that, for instance, for us to break even, if we were to keep the money 2 years at a rate of 8.276, which isn't a very likely rate, we would break even to do that. So you see it gets on down as you go. If you keep it 5 years, you'd have to get a return of 3.3, 7 years, 2.3, 10 years, 1.65, and then 13.77, I think, is the full term of 1.202.
So the question before us is, we can refinance the exact amount or refund and lower our interest rate, which will give us over $5 million savings over the 13.77 years remaining in the term. Or if we want to pay down on the equity and reduce the equity or reduce the amount we are actually borrowing, then we would have some additional savings. Of course, that's money that's, if you put $1 million to buy down or to invest so that we're financing less, then of course that's $1 million that doesn't go for some other project. And that's what we're being faced with. Typically, it's probably a question for Pam more so, but historically when we've done a refunding, have we put extra money down, or normally we haven't, have we?
We have never done this scenario before. Back when we brought you the jail annexed, which was the ability we were able to pay that debt off, there were other opportunities that you had expressed interest in, and this is the only option we have found to be available to reduce some debt for the future would be to slide some cash into a refinancing where the principal amount's automatically reduced. Our financial advisor, which is another individual working on the GO debt, had a recommendation of $3 million, which I believe that's what Ann did the budget revision for. But this was just another opportunity to try to reduce some of our outstanding debt for the future expenditures that we have. So it's not a great deal of savings, but as Ann has indicated, you're not going to invest the money and make that kind of an interest rate off of it. So at this point, it's a good option to at least consider putting that additional cash in there and reducing the debt service for future years.
Yeah, if you have some, you've got a lot of wants and needs that are going to come before you in the budget. So if you put the money down and save the interest, we save the interest. But you also lose that flexibility of having cash on hand to address some of those other concerns. So we wanted to make sure you had the information in front of you to make a good decision and give us some direction.
Well, it looks to me like we put the 5 million down and saved the 11 million. It's been a good place for them one-time funds.
Well, if you put no additional money down, you save the almost 5.3 million already.
You're saving 6 more million if you,
Well, you're putting 5 million.
No, you're only saving $1 million.
Right, you're saving
You're saving
$827,000.
$827,580 for the $5 million that
everything
you
you
put
can
in.
save, you'll save.
That,
Why did the financial advisor recommend the 3 million versus 5 million or nothing? Is there a reason behind that magical 3 million?
Well, I think it helps the underwriters when you're doing some pay-go financing with the deal, and so they like to see that, and he was hopeful that also would help us get a better rate. But we were discussing what kind of funding we had available and what we might be comfortable with in terms of what we could let go of and not have any qualms about it. And that number was, in the 3 to 5 million range. There again, it's a risk tolerance issue of just how low do you go. So 3 was kind of in the middle of 1 and 5, to be honest. It's kind of a middle of the road approach versus being a little more risky and putting the whole 5 down, or not only putting 1.
We were also assessing our total overall fund balance in that process, and considering that we're going to the rating agencies, looking to see, based on how we anticipated this fiscal year to end, how much excess money we may have generated this year compared to what fund balance is from last year, to have a neutral effect on what happens to fund balance by also putting this cash down. And when I say that, if you make $5 million at the end of this year and you put $5 million down, your fund balance level doesn't change. So there's no fiscal effect to your fund balance, but yet you did a huge dip into your debt service. So we were throwing all those factors out on the table of, and Ann had done a lot of work on where did she think she was going to end up this year, what do we think we're going to spend as far as fund balance was concerned, and I think all those factors were thrown out on the table, and that's where the recommendation came back between $3 and $5 million, that we would not be affecting our overall fund balance for our future, but doing some good as far as reducing debt, which is, it's always a positive thing when you can pay down anything that you can pay down. But, and like I said before, when we went through that issue with the jail, this is the only options that we have available. We can't just outright pay anything off, so we kind of have to slide it into a deal. So that was where the basic overall financial discussion came from, was looking at our overall financial picture.
So do you feel comfortable that we would have the 5 million?
Yes.
Maybe, well, the other thing, though, to think about is, what other projects do we have in the near term? I mean, is it better to put money on this refunding, or is it better to use the money to pay towards the next debt service that we do, so that we don't borrow as much? So in elementary school, it goes towards an elementary school, or it goes towards, I don't remember if it's on here, but we do need to talk about the Mount Pleasant prison. Is it better for it to go in that area? Is it better for it to go towards the courthouse when that gets redone? I'm trying to think of those bigger things that are out there. Is it better to use it towards a parks facility or something? I mean, I'm not certain about that, but I mean, we all know that there will be a request from Cabarrus County Schools and Kannapolis City Schools within a couple years. So the question, that's my question. I mean, just saying, even if the request, if we were looking at doing something this time next year, just to pick a time frame, you have a little bit of time before the cash would have to be needed, but is it better to use the cash then so that instead of borrowing the whole amount at that time, it goes towards something like that? Or, like I said, Mount Pleasant Prison, I don't know if that'll be next month, that we're going to talk about that. And we've talked about the Mount Pleasant Prison in the past, what we're going to do if we're looking to get it, and what the time frame would be if we had to spend money out there. That one would definitely, I think, would be a cash project, not a finance project. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to those, but that's what I was thinking about with this.
So when does a decision have to be made for the refinancing?
Well, it would need to be made at the April 15th meeting because the bond refunding is scheduled for April 25th.
Okay.
And so,
Well, interest don't buy you anything. You can't spend it. So I'd say save all you can.
I guess my question would be, money is about as cheap right now as it has ever been in our lifetime. And so the likelihood that if we address some of these other projects that Chairman Poole mentioned and others that may come up and have to finance any additional projects, the likelihood that we will be paying a higher interest rate than what we will be saving today is probable. You agree with that?
I agree with that. They say rates are artificially low now and that we can expect them to increase.
So,
Which is why we're hoping to get this financing. I said, let them increase April 26th, the day
right.
after we finance.
so it's not as advantageous to us right now to pay down as it might have been earlier when the interest rates were higher.
Right, that's because that's
Yeah.
why this is the last refunding.
Right.
The county's already refunded everything we could as rates declined earlier, and this is the last item to
So
be
if we
refunded.
pay down $5 million now and go back next year and say we need $2 million, we need to borrow $2 million, then the net end result's going to be that we're going to pay more in the
I see what
term,
you're saying.
probably.
Because we're getting a really good rate.
Yeah.
We may be getting a really good rate.
Yeah, we are expecting to get a really good rate.
What's the, do you have any idea what the prepayment penalty year is when that is waived?
I don't think there is a prepayment penalty.
10 years.
10 years? Okay, so in essence, if we could save the $376,700 each year, and in year 10 pay it off.
Yes, I believe so.
I mean, that's about the break-even point of paying it off. Maybe year 8, maybe year 11, but if we save that money apart, number one. Number two is, at the $376,700, if we were to just put no additional monies down based on what Commissioner Morris is saying, which I agree, is that we have such a low interest rate, it's 1.35 something. I mean, it's
I think
under 2.
It was 1.97 at that time, and I think
Okay.
now it's 2.02.
Okay. But what I'm saying is that at $376,700, that if that money is actually realized, that's the planetarium out at Central Cabarrus that could be funded. So I think that I'd like to see what the prepayment, make certain when that year is, and I would like to look over these numbers myself between now and April the 15th, but I can make my decision on April the 15th based on that one information.
Any other questions?
Anything else? Okay, need a break? Okay, let's take a 5-minute break, 10-minute break. Let's come back about 1:45.